If you enjoy hearing these eerie tales and want more to help you drift off or keep you up at night, don't forget to tap the like button. It really helps the channel grow. I heard my dead husband's voice through our CCTV camera. Derek has always been a nice guy. He would not hesitate to help anyone in need. He would always help an old lady cross the road. He likes to spare some food to go so he can give some to any homeless man or woman in the streets. And he never raises his voice. He was always gentle with everyone he knows, and he cares dearly for all animals. One day, news came that a burglary happened in our neighborhood. The Johnsons from 2 blocks away had their jewelry stash taken. They were devastated since they were currently burdened by hospital bills from their ill daughter. Judging by the design of our houses here, a simple breaking of the window becomes a red carpet for the culprit. My husband was worried someone would steal his anime figurine collection, to which I raised an eyebrow and said that unless the burglar is a weeb, no one would bat an eye even if it's displayed outside. Can't reject the possibility of a weeb burglar though, he said, as he was shopping online for a CCTV camera set. He decided to install CCTV cameras around our home. He said that even if we can't stop the burglary, at least we have evidence for the insurance, or in the best case scenario, get a glimpse of the burglar's face so the police can catch him. The camera he bought was one of those that have a 2-way audio. He would sometimes try to be silly and say, "Hey, beautiful," through the camera speakers whenever I would enter the gate, then be greeted with a surprise hug inside the house. He was such a sweet guy, and I always thought to myself how lucky I am to have him. The tranquility of my life with him was broken when I came home from work and I saw police cars parked outside my house. My whole world came crumbling apart when they said my husband didn't make it. They said someone stabbed him 6 times inside our house, took his wallet, and just ran away. The police told me to give them a copy of the footage of the CCTV camera, which I completely forgot existed. Dread immediately came over me. Knowing the love of your life was murdered is one thing, but seeing them get killed on camera is another level of emotional trauma I never imagined to experience. The police said they will give me time to calm down and will come back the next day for the copy. They said they will place a patrol outside my house for a week to monitor suspicious activities. After all, the murderer got away. After I went home from the morgue, I gathered all that was left of me and played the last recording of my husband. He was humming one of his favorite songs while cleaning the porch, when suddenly someone was walking towards our gate, limping and repeatedly saying, "Help me." I leaned closer to the screen to make out the face of the assailant. He was wearing a black cap and had a face mask on. My hope of catching my husband's murderer vanished. I continued to watch the footage. The man was desperately asking for help from my husband. He said that he was in pain. My husband, being the nice person that he is, let the man inside. The man fell down to the ground like he fainted, and my husband rushed inside the house to grab his phone. When he did so, I saw the hands of the man move. He was reaching inside his pocket and pulled out a knife. Number. I gasped in horror. My husband came rushing out while dialing 911. When he got closer, the man suddenly stood up and stabbed him in the belly. Then, again, and again, and again, finishing one last stab in my husband's neck. I stopped the video and threw up. It was too much to bear. The tears came back, thinking, why would anyone do this? My husband never had enemies. Maybe some people are simply evil. I drowned myself in alcohol that night, watching the lights of the patrol car flicker by. And before going to bed, I decided to finish the video once and for all. My husband deserves that I see his last moments. As the last stab went through him, he fell down to the ground. His face wore the look of shock from what just happened. The man grabbed his wallet and ran away, leaving him bleeding to death. My husband was crawling, trying his best to reach his phone. I believed he dialed 911, informed the police that he was stabbed, and just lied there. Maybe he already realized that he was not going to make it because in the next moment, I noticed he was staring at me. No, I realized he was staring at the camera, and I listened closely for his last words. With blood gushing from his mouth, he tried his best to smile and said, "Hey, beautiful. It will be okay. Promise me you'll take care of yourself, okay? I love you. Always." His head fell down and his eyes were still glued to the camera. I watched him breathe slower and heavier until he took his last breath. I cried myself to sleep that night. After a week, the police stopped patrolling around my house. They said they couldn't get anywhere based on the footage, but they will let me know once they find any leads. I stayed with my mother for a month before deciding to come back to our house. It felt like it happened just yesterday. When I entered the gate, I could still see the stains from my husband's blood. I have to face life on my own now. As I was fumbling through my keys, I jumped when I heard someone say, "Hey, beautiful." What the fuck? I thought. Whoever is doing this prank, stop that right now. Zarania, I was furious. This is not funny at all. I immediately changed our Wi-Fi's password and consulted with my IT friend if someone has hacked through the cameras. He said that everything looks secure. I didn't tell anyone this, but I know for certain that it was my husband's voice. I tried to live normally the following days and tried to forget the incident that happened early on. Until one night, I woke up at 2 a.m. I could hear some noise outside the house. I went out and I noticed it came from the camera. The sound was first static, followed by something gurgling. Then for a short time, I swear, I heard someone moaning in pain and said the word "inside." Then the sound went silent. The hairs on my back stood up from the weird noise. I immediately went back inside, locked the doors, and checked the video feed. Nothing seems interesting. I couldn't even hear anything even when I saw myself go outside to check. Not until I increased the brightness of my screen. There, I saw a black figure at the far back of the video. It was hidden in the shadows, but I am sure it is shaped like a human. Then, it just disappeared after I closed the doors. I didn't hear any sound from the camera for the whole week. On a Friday evening, I cooked steak and paired it with red wine. It's our anniversary today. I sat on the porch and playfully raised my glass to the camera. "Cheers," I said. I can feel my eyes tearing up again when out of nowhere it answered. Static. "I love you." Static. "Derek?" I sobbed. "If you're out there, please tell me you're okay, please." No response. I waited for an hour before calling it a night. I must have had too much to drink. I started to walk towards the door when I heard footsteps coming from outside the gate. Static. Hide. Static. Without hesitation, I ran and closed the front door and peeked the windows. Someone was moving around the house. I can hear the rustling from the footsteps. My hands were shaking as I began to dial 911. They told me to lock all doors and windows and wait for the police to arrive. I went to my room and held a baseball bat. In just a minute, I heard the window breaking. I held my breath as I heard the footsteps grew closer. They were heavy. My heart pounded every second until I could see his shadow just outside my door. I braced myself. But then I heard another man shout from across the hall. "The fuck, man? You're supposed to be dead." That was the last thing I heard before a loud bang came from across the hallway. The police came in a few minutes and found an unconscious man inside the house. They said it was like someone threw him hard to the wall given the crack he made on it. Suffice to say, the incident left him with a fractured spine, and he will live the rest of his life as a vegetable. I said it was self-defense, but the police only scratched their heads in disbelief. After all, I left out the part where someone else was there with me. When I heard it happen, I slowly opened my door and found that no one was there, except the unconscious intruder. The next thing I heard was static coming from the camera outside. Static. "Hey, beautiful. It's okay now." Static. "Derek, thank you," I replied. I cried in relief and went back to my room to wait for the cops. From that day on, I always greeted our camera with, "Honey, I'm home." And I would sit by the porch to talk about my day, all the good and bad experienced I had, knowing that my husband is out there, watching over me. It's been 2 years since the incident, and I never heard back from my husband since. I finally found confidence to go back into dating. I met a nice guy in a cafe, and he asked me out for dinner. While waiting to be picked up that evening, my hairs stood up from the message he sent me. "Hey, beautiful, I'm here.